Could Super Shadow and Super Sonic take out Thanos and his army? Thanos is a character whose whole gig was looking for very powerful gems / artifacts, right? And Sonic and Shadow, spoilers by the way, teamed up to take out an entire army. So why not? Let's say that the Infinity Stones are on the planet Earth and Thanos pulled up and we just got Super Sonic and Super Shadow as the Earth's and by extension the universe's last hope. How would they fare? I don't want to do this.
Too bad. I leave for a couple of videos and I come back to see this slop on my channel. Fortnite versus Godzilla. A giant condor video. Are you serious? Honestly, I'm giving the people what they want. I'm about to save your channel. You should be thanking me, to be honest.
So what's going on here? You're gonna co-host or what?
And do more lines? That kind of defeats the purpose of you being my minion. It seems like you forgot your place.
So you're telling me you came all the way back here just to tell me a video to do?
Precisely. I'll be back in about 15-ish minutes, so be sure to make it snappy. This is my vacation, so the last place I want to be is here.
Then leave then.
What was that?
Nothing.
Good. I shall take my leave, but I will return soon.
So yeah, Nick's back. Let's get to the topic at hand. Alright, let's start with Thanos, as his scaling's been out for years, and more importantly, the Gator has no interest in MCU power scaling, so we should be alone for the moment. Anyways, Thanos as the main bad of the Infinity Saga scales above a lot of the main Avengers, with the only real exceptions being Wanda and Captain Marvel respectively, who both blatantly overpowered the Mad Titan and would have defeated him, if not for him utilizing outside, forces. Thanos due to inverse is pretty blatantly stronger than Phase 3 Thor, literally ragdolling and beating down Fat Thor, who is confirmed to be the strongest version that we've seen up to this point. This is notable as in Avengers Infinity War, he was able to endure the full force of a neutron star. A lot of people still goon this feat, but the energy a star emits is not equivalent to the act of destroying said star. Like, it's been 8 years, guys. There's no way I have to explain why Thor enduring the energy of a star in proportion to his body for like 58 seconds, with him falling unconscious 40 seconds in, doesn't mean that he can endure, much less output energy comparable to what would be required to destroy an actual star in its entirety. But it's still a pretty good feat as it gets him in the large country level ranges, not no star level, but hey, large country. Thanos upscales this as kind of a bare minimum thing, but to find more concrete stuff and higher end stuff, Thanos is a being so strong that he's able to utilize the full Infinity Gauntlet without really taking that much damage. This is notable as Tony Stark states that the resting energy of the completed Infinity Gauntlet emits enough resting power to destroy an entire continent, which would mean Thanos can essentially endure energy anywhere between 760 teratons to even as high as 4.4 petatons. This would still be a lowball estimate, as this is just the amount of power required to hold the gauntlet, and presumably utilizing it, especially to, a universal scale when game ending half of the population, much less to destroy the storms themselves, would mean that Thanos should be able to endure at least multi-continental amounts of energy. Thanos physically scales to his durability as he could beat down the Incredible Hulk, who is confirmed to be his physical equal, with him overpowering the Jolly Green Giant by, just a sheer skill. And the directors of the film also confirmed that he was not utilizing the Power Stone in this very infamous sequence. Thanos is a threat stated to be unbeatable in a 1v1 encounter. This is consistently shown as he's jumped too many times the count, even when holding back and wearing no armor. Thanos is just a big threat, too big for anyone whose name isn't Captain Marvel or Wanda Maximoff. For a higher gauge for his attack potency, we're gonna have to dive into the extent of his durability. Thanos with his Uru blade is shown to be able to break apart Captain America's vibranium shield. This is important as not even Mjolnir could replicate this feat. Thor's famous hammer was crafted on Nidavellir, a place that crafts the most powerful weapons in the entire universe. Both of Thor's weapons and even the Infinity Gauntlet were crafted here. This is important as Rocket Raccoon vouches for the place's reputation, and he's the guy who can create guns that can shatter and destroy entire moons. And rockets like this stuff makes the most powerful weapons, so Thanos having a sword that can pierce metal, that weapons stronger than guns that can moonbust, is pretty impressive to say the least. Thanos himself might actually have higher durability than his gauntlet, which was crafted here as he could survive the energy of the snap. Granted, he was pretty visibly hurt, but look at the Infinity Gauntlet. The thing was just peeling apart at that point, and even worsely damaged than Thanos was, to be honest. There is also the fact that Thanos could survive getting hit by Stormbreaker, so Thanos low-key has showcased moon level feats of durability, and which for reasons we've talked about, you can scale his AP to that. As for speed now, Thanos should be as fast as anyone in the verse. I mean, in order to fight on par with characters who are jumping him, it's pretty self-explanatory that he would need relative speed as pretty much anyone. For some concrete, like quantifiable stuff though, he's able to catch Stormbreaker, which is a weapon that should be just as fast, if not faster than Mjolnir, which during Thor the Dark World was shown to be able to fly into outer space and back to the planet Earth and, massively hypersonic speeds. But for higher ends now, Thanos can react to light-based attacks, and I mean, even in a very weakened state than his normal base, he could block Captain Marvel's full-time beams. Staying on Carol for a second now, she's a character who can scout entire planets at relativistic plus speeds, and Thanos can even react to her in combat, and honestly, more impressively, Thanos was able to throw his sword faster than Captain Marvel could fly, granting Thanos at best relativistic plus to even FTL combat speeds and reaction time. But yeah, that's pretty much base Thanos' stats, so let's move on to his capabilities and his arsenal. Obviously, Thanos' most noteworthy force is his Chitauri army, as well as the Black Order. These guys are pretty much the stormtroopers of his forces, having many members who are not really being all that impressive across the board. Like, at best, he has, like, Cull Obsidian, who is getting clipped by Spider-Man, and is unironically an Ant-Man victim. With the rest of these forces just being, like, street-tier characters for the Avengers to box with. Boney Maw is also pretty neat, I guess, but I don't want to really explain why he's a non-factor in this matchup specifically. So let's just double down on talking about Thanos' army. And honestly, their only real, really good thing about them is just their sheer numbers. But even then, that isn't an issue that can't be fixed, as if you destroy the central mothership for the Chitauri, they will just die after the fact. With this most infamously being shown during the original Avengers, as well as Endgame doubling down on this notion.
The Chitauri, the suckiest army in the galaxy. Why don't you just blow up the mothership?
Despite this being the case, Thanos' forces have decimated and conquered countless planets, all in order to achieve balance, as he puts it, which is a goal that didn't really become done until he utilized the Infinity Stones, which we'll go over for the sake of thoroughness. For this part, I'll be going over just 3 versions of Thanos. Thanos with the Power Stone, as seen at the beginning of Infinity War, and then I'll go over Thanos with 4 of the stones, as seen on, the planet Titan when he was getting jumped, and to finish this part off, we'll go over the completed Infinity Gauntlet and his capabilities. The first thing to establish when talking about Thanos and his stones is that due to his genius intellect, he understands the true scope of their power, and he's confirmed to be on a different level of, harnessing their power compared to anyone else, meaning that he would upskill the escapades of Ronan, Malekith, and even Loki. But starting off with the Power Stone, Thanos can punch away characters like Captain Marvel. Keep in mind, she has the power to reignite entire stars, so Thanos just being able to one-shot her like this would, grant him some dwarf star level scaling unironically. This is consistent as Thanos has a feat where he was able to rip apart and throw a moon, which is a large planetary feat. One thing to talk about is that while Thanos does get this high with the Power Stone, he doesn't scale to it in base, with it really just being blatantly shown here. But then again, people will try to bring up Iron Man and Doctor Strange being able to block or disperse blasts from the stone to get Thanos that high physically, which is a notion that I don't agree with. This is because Thanos has shown the ability to control the stone's output, with him torturing Thor during the beginning of the film being the biggest example of this being the case. You can also tell how much of the Power Stone he's using due to his facial expressions, as well as the situations that he's in. He's clearly heavily exerting himself when trying to pull that moon, and he's literally super desperate in this Captain Marvel instance. So to say he's utilizing relative energy in these random AoE key blasts, especially when they're targeted towards forces that he wants to keep alive because they're the only ones who know where the time stone is to begin with, and I hope you guys can see why that's just, not the same at all. I had to go over that because people like to upscale Thanos off of, these 2 instances right here to try to say that Thanos in base is large planetary, which, as you can see, has a pretty decent debunk and would just be inconsistent with everything else shown. As for Thanos, when he's on Titan and he has multiple stones, most notably, he showed the ability to create a black hole with the Space Stone, which when calculated has been asserted to have enough energy to destroy the planet Earth 2 times over. So that's another planetary level instance for Thanos with multiple Infinity Stones, or just, 1 or 2. But with the completed Gauntlet, Thanos becomes a different animal, as he has many narrative implications to be a universal threat. The Power Stone alone, when utilized in tandem with the rest of the stones, is stated to grant the user infinite power, and I mean the entire driving force of the Endgame final battle is that Thanos intended to destroy the entire universe with the Infinity Gauntlet and just replace it with a new universe. So yeah, Thanos with a completed Infinity Gauntlet would at best find himself in the universal actual ranges of combat AP. So with the threat covered in its entirety, what do Sonic and Shadow bring to the table? Once again, I feel the need to advise you guys that this section will include spoilers for Sonic 3, and while I can't actually show you guys any of the scenes, I can describe them to you, so just keep that in mind. Super Sonic and Super Shadow as of now are the top tiers in power in the verse, and while some scaling comes from the most recent film, there's still 2 entire movies that they should upscale. So as a nice baseline, a single one of Sonic's quills can produce a shockwave visible from orbit, which when calculated has been asserted to output relative energy to what would be required to destroy an entire island. Sonic by the end of the first film was able to endure blasts from ships powered by this singular quill, and he would go on to subsequently destroy a mech and just blatantly overpower the energy of a single quill. For a quantifiable metric, hedgehogs on average have anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 quills, meaning you could attempt to calc stat to try to find Sonic's full AP, and you would find yourself with a value anywhere between 93 to 156 teratons of TNT. To put that large number into perspective, this would mean that Sonic would pack a punch greater than actual mass extinction events, which might actually be consistent as the beginning of Sonic 3 confirms that the blue blur has the power and was just born with the power to cause said cataclysmic global events.
Do this kind of thing all the time.
Tom, your brothers are lunatics, and neither of them were born with the power to trigger a global cataclysmic event.
So yeah, this notion is consistent with calculations and even narrative at this point, but this is still a relatively low end, as this method assumes that Sonic's full power is linear to like the amount of quills he has on deck, which is kind of weird. Like, it sort of implies that if you plucked out a single one of Sonic's quills, he'd be a little bit weaker, which I don't think is ever implied or, you know, consistent. But yeah, to find a more accurate gauge, Sonic, while utilizing his power for the first time in years during a 25, charging sequence, was able to generate enough energy to create a shockwave that could travel across the universe to Tails' home planet. This distance is likely accurate as Tails is presumably from the same planet as Sonic, which Longclaw confirms is on the far side of the universe in its position to the planet Earth. So Sonic generating an explosion that could travel that far, that fast, over the course of like 2 days at worst, would mean that this little guy is capable of generating some truly insane levels of power. But for a really conservative estimate, just taking into account the distance it traveled from Earth to the satellite, and it's been found that the yield of energy of this satellite would be anywhere between 9.5 zettatons to even 626 zettatons, which is anywhere between small planetary to just baseline planetary. And as crazy as it seems, Sonic would scale to this level in terms of his AP and durability, as by the end of Sonic 2, he's relative to Knuckles, who can one-shot Sonic post Sonic 1, and just fight on par with a character who can endure attacks from this presumably stronger Sonic in quick succession, rapidly as well. So yeah, Sonic and base by the start of Sonic 3 should have anywhere between large island to planetary AP. As for a base Shadow the Hedgehog, Commander Walters states that he's far above anything they've ever encountered.
Project Shadow is far beyond anything we've ever encountered.
This is very important, as Walters was on the committee staff that, was talking about Sonic Shockwave all the way back during the events of the first film. So Shadow unironically just upscales this Shockwave in its entirety at worst. This is a notion consistent in the film, as he can, solo team Sonic and, beat Knuckles, who is stronger than Sonic. And this isn't even mentioning the fact that Sonic and Shadow only have one fight in base, and it ends with Sonic getting one-shotted and waking up unconscious, chained to like a metal rod. And then Shadow later on in the film is like, I'm tired of giving you guys warnings. So that's not even a full-powered Shadow. So off the bat, both of the Hedgehogs in base would have some pretty solid planetary scaling. Pretty good considering the fact that it comes from a conservative low-end calc. So with AP covered, let's just move on to speed. For starters, Shadow is stated to be faster than Sonic. I don't think it's by a crazy amount, so we'll just scale Sonic's speed and just say that both Super Hedgehogs upscale it. As a baby, Sonic is confirmed to be able to run around his entire island in the span of 2 seconds, which would be a feat in the sub-relativistic ranges. As an adult now, he can perceive Eggman's missiles as frozen, which would get his, travel speed, combat speed, and perception speed in the relativistic ranges at worst. But for higher ends, the Sonic the Hedgehog novel confirms that the blue blur is is capable of moving at hyperspeed, which is just a synonym for faster than speed. It's a sentiment remarkably consistent throughout the novel, so I'm just gonna put them on screen. Yeah. For higher ends now, the speed of Sonic's energy shockwaves traveled across the far side of the universe in a very short manner of time, assuming that the shockwaves made it to his planet the same night, as that's what Tails says, and it's been determined that the speed of these shockwaves exceeded the speed of light 109 trillion times over. Sonic should scale to his own power, especially in the speed department, and then at the beginning of Sonic 3 you have Commander Walter saying that Shadow is far above it. For some consistency, Sonic, especially at his peak, is able to blitz Eggman, a character who has no trouble viewing, base Sonic level characters in terms of combat as well as speed. Moving on to the Sonic 3 scaling now, and we got a lot of planetary stuff, right? We had that before, but it just got a lot more consistent. This is because the entire plot revolves around the erasure cannon, which is implied to be able to planet bust, as Gerald states that the machine would generate a blast that would destroy everything in a 25,000 mile radius. For comparison, the planet Earth has a circumference of 24,000 miles, so yeah, at worst, this blast is planetary. Gerald also states that the blast would destroy them as well, so this hypothetical, explosion is taking out the Earth and some change. Due to some calcs I found on the Versus Wiki, the hypothetical power, harness and this blast would be, planetary at worst. Nothing that I just couldn't infer. But due to one of my boys, apparently they forgot to square their inverse square law, which means that this hypothetical blast would actually be equivalent to 9.4 yotatons. That's large planetary amounts of power. I've been talking about the blast for the erasure cannon because Shadow generated it by running in a circle for 30 seconds, similar to how Sonic running for 30 seconds in the first movie generated planetary amounts of energy. So I guess it's only appropriate that Shadow, who's far above base Sonic, is able to generate larger planetary amounts of energy while doing the same thing as Sonic. This is notable as Super Sonic should be stronger than base Shadow, as he can fight on par with Shadow in his super form. And while Shadow is pretty visually clear to be the stronger of the two hedgehogs, the gap isn't so large that Sonic doesn't get his hits in, because he just does. He even pulls a Man of Steel Injustice 2 combo, but every punch sees the two hedgehogs on a different continent. And Sonic, while angered and egged on by Shadow, is able to punch Shadow out of his super form. So I think they're relative. Moving on to much later in the film, both hedgehogs would team up and hold off the same large planetary amounts of energy harnessed in the erasure cannon's laser for a prolonged period of time as well, until Sonic's boys and Eggman divert the laser, which only grazes the moon. And for those of you guys interested in the split, it's been found that the erasure cannon replicated energy required to destroy multiple continents, and that was only, it grazing the moon for a second. I could go later into the film as there's a couple of more notable feats, but I think I presented enough stuff to the point where we have large planetary AP as a baseline for both of the super hedgehogs, and they would also scale to their durability, as they could just sit in the blast for a very prolonged period of time. And as for their speed, they would have some FTL plus to even MFTL plus combat speeds and reaction time. So between the two hedgehogs and the Mad Titan, who'd win? And well, I think that if we're gonna use base Thanos and his army, then Sonic and Shadow got this in the bag. They're much stronger and they're much faster. And if that is an issue, Shadow and Sonic have a lot of ways to get rid of hordes of people. Sonic can conjure up massive storms, as seen at the end of Sonic 2, and Shadow especially has a lot of crazy stuff. He's got this black hole thing. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know that it was gonna suck up Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails, characters much stronger than the average Chitauri members. And spoilers, Shadow has the ability to utilize multiple Chaos Spears, and he can throw them all at once, which he uses to destroy a huge horde of robots. So, remember how Captain Marvel was during Endgame? It would be like that, but times 2. And if we're gonna use a Thanos with no stones, yeah, he's kind of cooked. But things get a little bit more interesting once you give him more stones, right? If we're gonna give him the amount of stones he had on Titan, that becomes a little bit more interesting, but there's a speed gap. And how do I put this? Sonic and Shadow are just much faster, like trillions of times, unironically. And honestly, it kind of takes away Thanos' advantage here, being the stones, as I really believe that, the Power Stone especially is going to do some major damage to our two little hedgehogs over here. If they could send Captain Marvel flying, a character who's dwarf star level, in a single punch, it might low-key evaporate them if it touches them, low-key. But due to the massive speed gap, I can't say wholeheartedly that you would even be able to tag them. And the same thing goes for Thanos with a full gauntlet. I've seen at the end of Infinity War, Thanos was blitzed and caught off guard by Thor when he had the completed gauntlet, and it caused him to just throw out a random blast, right? The directors confirmed that he was off guard, he didn't know what he was doing, right? So, could you imagine Thanos trying to utilize the stones when he's trying to fight characters who are trillions of times faster than him? Unironically, Thor was relative to him in speed. Sonic doesn't have that weakness, and he punches a lot harder than the Stormbreaker, and I think Shadow's going for the head, I'm not gonna lie. So the only way that Thanos gets a win is if you wank MCU speed, right? And I don't even know a way. How can you wank MCU speed to 109 trillion times faster speed of light? I haven't heard that meta, and I've heard a lot of MCU rat wank. Trust me. And I couldn't even imagine trying to wank the MCU that hard. Like, imagine saying Thanos has MFTO plus combat speeds and reaction times, and he's out here getting blitzed by Spider-Man. Same guy who Captain America can tag. Same Captain America who gets tagged by bullets. So hey, if you want to wank, it's only fair that you kind of explore the opposite end of that coin. Honestly, just give the Infinity Gauntlet to Robotnik, because Thanos is just not doing anything with it. As today's winners are Sonic the Hedgehog and Shadow, via higher AP, higher speed, and the ability to take out mass quantities of enemies at once. You know what, I actually kind of liked that video, and the topic was pretty fun. Maybe Nick is right and he has a lot more decent ideas than I think of. You know, you can't really blame me, he lives in the sewers. And his idea of fun is crawling up toilets.
I do have the best ideas indeed.
You scared me, bruh.
I know my flawless figure is quite intimidating.
Sure.
Well, anyways, I think I did a good job making this video for you guys.
Here we go.
This video was truly a testament to my higher level thinking and my incredible ability to make accurate information entertaining and engaging as well.
Oh wait, hold on now.
Ignore the cretin. As we move into 2025, I'd like to thank everyone who supported me and my channel. It has been an honor to make this video for you guys, but I think it's more of an honor that you guys get to be in my presence as the ultimate life form. But regardless, I do enjoy making all of this content for you. So to all 50,000 subscribers, look forward to more. And as always, stay big, Nick fans.